On June 13th, 2022. We have people here present as well as, I believe, by Zoom. What I'd like to do first is call the meeting to order and have a roll call.
Commissioner Lane.
Here.
Commissioner Raymore.
Here.
Commissioner Reader.
Here.
Commissioner Welch. Commissioner Weber.
Here. I believe is Commissioner Walsh on Zoom? I don't think so.
No, she is not.
She is on Zoom?
No, she is not.
Okay, all right, thank you. With having four of us physically here, we do have a quorum for tonight, so we will proceed with our meeting. What I'll ask first then, in terms of our items, is an approval of the agenda for tonight. So moved. Second. Okay, roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Raymore. Yes. Commissioner Reader.
Yes.
President Wheeler.
Yes. All right, before we go into the statement of visitors, just a few things. Thank you, everybody, because the Zoom and mics have been tested. I know we've had problems with audio before, but I will ask everyone out there as well on Zoom, as well as here, keep your microphones close to you. If anyone's having a hard time hearing us over Zoom, please raise your hand. We do have Jeff online, so he will be able to address that, and we'll make sure that we try to correct the audio as we go through so no one has a problem. The other thing is because we just had tornado warnings, if we do need to evacuate, John Wheeler said we need to go to the locker room.
Yeah, the restrooms.
The restrooms.
Right around the corner here.
Okay.
Or the pool.
Or the pool locker rooms. Okay, so we have two safety marshals who will cut us out to wherever we need to go, just in case there is the need to do so during our meeting. All right, now what I'd like to do is go into statement of visitors. This is our portion of the meeting where we give opportunity for the citizens to address the board. Citizens are given the opportunity to address regarding items that are not included under the agenda, under the unfinished or continuing business. And each citizen is limited to a 3-minute time frame. And so we'll go ahead and ask, because we do have some folks here tonight, please go ahead and stand, and appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Hi, Ray Doyle, I can find the Stanton Avenue.
This is funny.
I think the aquatic staff saw you coming. They'll go take care of that.
Let's take the lifeguards clean.
I should have started, right?
Yes, you can, yeah.
I have an observation and several questions, which I guess you're not allowed to answer right now, but which I'd like you to consider and answer as soon as possible. This past weekend, I visited the new preserve at Highland Park. Despite it being an unseasonably cold day, there were bikers, dog walkers, runners, walkers, kids playing on sand playgrounds, and people learning about nature through the many exhibits there. It was beautiful, interactive, multifaceted, with a diverse crowd of families, retirees, athletes, and dog owners. While I understand that it and the Lake Bluff Preserve aren't quite an apples to apples comparison, they both involve taking a golf course and converting it to a nature preserve with multiple recreational activities for the community. Not just golf, though the Highland Park Preserve does have mini golf. I didn't know that. So this begs the question, has the park board visited this preserve? Have you spoken with the Highland Park folks about their experiences? Have you done your due diligence learning about this, its pros and cons? I would hope, as hopefully impartial arbiters of what is best for Lake Bluff, you have done this or will do this. It would seem to be an easy and obvious educational opportunity 15 minutes away. My second question is, what is the status of the relationship with Beyond Your Base, the referendum consultant you retained in 2021? Since you retained them, you obviously thought the Park District needed more funds to support your mission. Do you still think that? And are you pursuing any other alternatives, plans, or ideas for the Park District to raise additional funds besides the referendum? Finally, about PCI, which I know you're going into further detail later on tonight. They have reported that they're going to, quote, prepare spokespeople on how to communicate on this issue. Who are these spokespeople? How will they be selected? And what materials and resources will be used in their preparation? And will it be biased or unbiased? Unbiased, I suppose. To that point, as you probably know, PCI's proposal contains language like, quote, taking Park District land, unquote, and working with news media to inform the public about how we are, quote, losing parkland use for permanent flood control, unquote. Despite being untrue, no one's parkland is being taken or lost. In fact, one could argue gained. With this kind of slanted language, isn't the park board effectively taking a side on this issue and promoting that side to the public? And where did PCI come up with this language in the first place? My and most citizens' expectation and hope is that this issue will be examined in the spirit of impartiality, bipartisanship, and what is in the best interests of Lake Bluff, as outlined in the Park District Statement of Board Member Ethics and Conduct. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Ellen Grondin. I live here in Lake Bluff, and my husband Joe has joined me tonight. First, I want to say thank you to the commissioners in the Park District for investing into the pickleball courts. It's been a great new asset. I know that they were lined for many years over the tennis courts. They've been a wonderful addition, and they've sparked a gathering of like-minded fans of the game. And we've got a group of 60 plus and growing, and we regularly have 24 or more playing on a regular basis. It came as a shock to us recently with the membership model and the idea of reserving courts, which many of us, but I'll speak for myself specifically, feel is antithetical to a Park District's mission. I think the idea of monetizing what were exterior courts where there didn't need to be staffing or the infrastructure costs that go into running a pool or running a fitness center, it really came as a shock to many of us. That said, we are great fans of the Park District and we want to support you, but we'd like to, I personally, and I think many others, would like to advocate for moving away from the proposed model. I took the time to reach out to a number of neighboring park districts, and I just thought I'd go quickly through what I learned in meeting with most of them. There were one or two where I found information online. Gurney has multiple parks with dedicated pickleball courts and also tennis courts that are lined. They do not have a membership fee, and so they're free, and there is a no reservation system. Lincolnshire is the same. They have 4 brand new installed courts, and they also have other courts peppered throughout their park district. Vernon Hills has 6 brand new courts, and they also are open and free. Highland Park not only has a really beautiful facility at Yannicuna Park, but there are 6 courts that I would consider relatively new. There are additional tennis courts that are lined, and they are open and free. And they've also gone a step further and identified very specific times for open recreational play. And it is a given that if there is park programming, lessons, leagues, that is a reasonable reservation of the court. Northbrook does offer a rental program, though it's not required, and they do not have a membership fee. Deerfield only opens indoor, or only has indoor courts, and they have a fee, $7 for residents, $9 for non-residents, but it's 4 hours of open play. Libertyville has 2 parks, 3 courts at present. They're looking to add 6. They're looking to expand their pickleball offerings because of the purchase of their sports complex by Camden. They also have a group of about 60 avid players, and they have made a commitment to actually not, except for the occasional high school use of tennis courts or the like, they have not reserved those courts for park district programming for afternoons and evenings, so that they are wide open, given the level of play that they're receiving. And I spoke with someone there. Grays Lake, the folks at Libertyville said they have a similar program and a very avid pickleball. I looked at Beaton. They have 6 dedicated courts at one park, 2 in another. And then there's 2 also lined tennis courts. And they're also free to play on. They focus their league play on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so that there are dedicated recreational open play times. So I guess my thesis here is I think that what the park district is proposing is it in the spirit of a park district. And I would hope that you folks would help re-examine your approach to monetizing the pickleball courts. I also went on to a forum on Facebook that has almost 70,000 members. And so here I asked what their experience is in their community. These are the places where it's free, no membership. For outdoor courts, I understand fees for indoor courts. Reno Sparks, Nevada, Elmira, New York, Middlesex County, New Jersey, Hanover Park, Illinois, Southeast Georgia, Central Minnesota, Pittsburgh, PA, Dallas, Texas, Mankato, Minnesota, Orlando, Florida, Honolulu, Slidell, Louisiana, and Durham, Raleigh, Chapel Hill. So I would just hope that you might reconsider. We are happy to support you if you have a bid to our community to help it be a healthy, vibrant program. But I hope you would step back from a reservation and membership model. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who's here tonight who would like to speak? Okay. Jeff, is there anybody on Zoom who would like to?
Nobody has their hand up.
Nobody has their hand up. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to here to verbal communications, which is just down to me with the board president report. I'll steal the thunder, I think, of the park district staff and just say everything looks wonderful with what's happening with camp enrollment, with pool registrations, with everything being used tonight in terms of, well, not so much the pool. Thank you, everyone. The golf course, the pool, all of our activities are being used because, thank you, let's get some more good weather. So that's wonderful to see. I want to thank everybody who was able to participate in Sunrise Rocks, and thank you to the staff who stayed till the bitter end on that night. It really looked like a wonderful evening. Very, very generous people made great donations that night for Sunrise Rocks, and it was very kind of Susan Ryder and Todd Porter to host that wonderful event again for a second time, or second year in a row, I should say. So let's hope that it was a good fundraiser for Sunrise Beach. And then just finally, I don't mean to end on a happy note on this or a sad note on this, but with the events that have been happening in Uvalde, just keep in mind that the Park District also is a place for, if I recall correctly, students to come over from school just in case anything. Yeah, we're a unification center here. So everybody just keep in mind and everybody keep the thoughts there that this never has to be used and this stuff never touches our community. But here in the Park District, they take the same safety precautions to make sure that the children, the staff, everybody here are safe as well.
If I could just expand on that, actually, just today, Jim and I met with the chief and the lieutenant from the police department here in Lake Bluff to talk about some of our policies and our programs. And so we're reviewing and updating that as we speak, and they're going to go back and review our updates and make any suggestions. They were very helpful in meeting with us today, but we're just continuing to be proactive and try to make sure that we have good training for our staff and updated procedures for what they call an active threat.
All right, so moving on from there on to the new business, so that everyone's aware, we are making our best efforts to keep everything coordinated. Our agenda was appropriately published. It was published on time. The packet of information does not have to accompany the agenda, but we've been making this concerted effort, even though it's not policy yet, making a concerted effort to make sure that the packet is also produced at the same time. Just due to a mistake, the wrong packet was posted, and as a result, it was not included until a little bit earlier today. As a result of that, and we had thought that we were going to use tonight to be able to institute some policy. We are long overdue because it was back in March that we met for the first time to talk about changes to our policy manual. Many of them are sorely needed to be able to enact, but because the packet was not provided at the same time the agenda, I'm just going to ask for tonight. We had two items for approval. I'd like to just make them discussion if we can tonight, and we can vote on them when we move with the next meeting. Okay. All right. So moving on from there, we have community engagement, the PCI proposed schedule, and our update. As we said before, community engagement with what is going on with the task force, with what is going on with the Park District is critical. We, if this had been a whole different spin of time, there would have been community engagement much earlier, but we're very happy now that we do have PCI in place to be able to bring in the community with the proposal that's before us about the change to the golf course, about stormwater management and wetland development. So for PCI at this time, they have worked on putting together the insert that went into the Bluff, the information about the Park District News. So they've helped craft the article for that. What they have suggested is to have a Q&A with the task force. So the task force, and Emily, I'll kind of turn to you a little bit. They're still on time. We're looking for the end of June. Yep. The task force members are all in. They are willing to put in their time as well to have a Q&A session. They have already gotten a draft. I brought this with me, but again, it's a draft of what their report will look like, as well as a draft FAQ. Understanding that not everyone is going to go through the entire report and go through the very dense but very great with information FAQs, they will also be there for an question and answer session for one evening. After we have that, PCI has recommended that we have 2 community forums. So this will be the opportunity for people in Lake Bluff Park District residents, users, to be able to have public commentary about what they've heard, what they've seen, be able to have their voice heard. PCI is also going to help us put together a website so that the information from the task force, the FAQs, and also have information or excuse me, a portal so that people can make comments directly to the website regarding this matter. I know that people have been sending in emails. If they come to board members, they come to staff, they come to all sorts of things. This will be the direct source to be able to have public commentary by email. That is also something they've suggested that we post to our packets as they're produced each time. They'll also have an email in order to be able to, email and also a direct mailer, and also to get more community engagement about this proposal in front of us. Am I overlooking anything? That was everything?
I think that was, I think you touched on
That was everything. Okay, so any further questions or suggestions as to what PCI can help us do with engagements too?
I guess the only thing I could say is that
It is concerning with some of the language that was in the PCI contract. We got it late. We wanted to get it passed. Can we have a discussion about how we're going to assure that the language that gets used is neutral, that we don't have a slant, whether it means representatives from the sides, but I get the golfers saying that so-and the preserve's lying, and I get the preserve saying the golfer's lying, and everybody has an opinion whether we admit it or not. And we need to make sure that our message is as neutral as it can possibly be if we believe that. And I want to make sure we have a way to do that.
Okay, I'll ask Nikki to chime in too, because Nikki and I were the ones who got with.
Yeah,
PCI.
and for sure. And, you know, it's so funny because when you're writing about anything and even PCI coming as a position of, you know, they don't care. They're just trying to help us get our message out. Sometimes things sound that way. So I'm gonna double check. I'm going through everything, you know, editing all of their work to make sure that it doesn't, and editing it for other things as well. But yes, if you want to take another look at it also, yeah, we're gonna make sure that it's not.
Well, since we are so polarized, I was even thinking so far as, is there a way to bring additional people in that maybe want to fact check the other side to make sure, because we all see somebody else's mistakes, but we don't see our own. So just a thought. We don't have to decide tonight, but.
And that's a good point, because when we have FAQs up, if we're not only adopting what the task force has, but any further information that comes directly from the park district. Let me step back for just a minute. One of my takeaways from what PCI talked to us about is that we are educators. We are not advocators, we are educators. And I think I've talked to enough people and said, okay, different role for me. But I like their thoughts on this, because as a park district as a whole, that is our responsibility. We are to educate about what we know. So if, as this progresses, that is going to be our responsibility to be able to educate appropriately of the information that we have. When you look at something like their initial proposal, their deck or something like that, I will say very frankly, when we talk to them, you know, what information do you have? You know, we showed them different Facebook pages, we showed them information that came from the task force at that time. If they're gleaning certain points, they may not be the points that we wanted to focus on, but that was the initial information that came through.
Or maybe even someone like I believe the community feels the task force is neutral. And I hope even some way to get maybe their input. Because again, when we say things like losing the golf course, we're not losing the golf course, we're not giving away. We misstep and put that out there for whatever reason. I don't know how that language got in, but I just want to make sure that doesn't continue to happen, because it does reflect on us. And it sends a message to the community of what we really want. And we're getting a lot of, well, so-and-so is, you know, doing this and they're, you know, and I just would like to minimize that. We have to bend over backwards to do everything we can to be as open and honest about this and try to make sure that we aren't slanting when we don't need to be slanting.
Well, do we want to like vote on all of our like FAQs and stuff before we put them out? You know, should we send that out in our packet? You know, should we, what's the best way to do that? You know, like, we'll get the stuff from them. I'll give it a, you know, once over edit. Then what do we do from there? That, you know, makes it, you know, I don't know the best way to do that.
The task force model has been, they've got their draft FAQs that continue to be refined as they go. And I think we can do the same thing.
Yeah.
And let me also say too, the reason why our FAQs may be different from the task force is because the task force focus is different. Theirs is on land use. We have to perhaps do a different due diligence as to the impact then as to what happens, how that affects the finances, staff, and everything else here. So we're going to run parallel and have additional FAQs with what, but I think that's a good idea too.
Yeah, no, it'd be pretty easy. Like with the task force, you know, they'll, when they're developing, whether it's they're working on a report, or their FAQs, or some of these other ones, the chair will ask for it to be sent out to all the task force members early in the week, and then get feedback from them on, you know, suggested changes, and then the, you know, document gets updated, and then it gets put in the packet. Everybody's seeing it. That's on the form. So if you want to do that, as these get, you know,
Give
developed.
PCI the deadline a couple of days before we actually need it, so maybe I can give it a once over and then get back to them, and then the final thing goes in, to us.
Can be sent out to
Yeah.
all the commissioners for review before you vote on
more step in that if there is information published and someone in the community communicates to us that they see a bias or that they have a concern that we got something wrong, that somehow that circles back to us, it doesn't wait for another board meeting,
Right.
that we can address it, because I do take this very seriously.
I would hope it would always get back to us.
Well, we still have to talk about policies and communication and how we make sure we get everything, but if someone emails all of us, we get it. But in this day, in this policy, if someone mails it to say one person, it does not need to go there.
Right, okay.
So we have to make a conscious effort that for this particular agenda item, that we are going to be constantly on guard for that. So.
One of the things that I think Nikki and John and I liked in our conversations with Joe Already, with JP Ryder, Director, thank you, is that let's call it a living, breathing schedule. They really were very attuned to saying that if there is something that needs to be added, changed, amended, however we need to be able to pivot to work with what's happening, that's what they want to be able to do with us. So while I'm saying we've got the 2 community forums, we've got the FAQs, or excuse me, the Q&A with the task force, if we find the need for something else to come in place as we learn more information, they were very responsive to.
The time of our meetings.
Yeah.
So our first meeting, we wanted to be a Q&A with the task force and the public.
Mhm.
So we have a general time as when we want to do that. Beginning of July, end of July, something like that. And then also, how much notice should we be giving the public that the meeting's going to happen? I would want to have plenty of notice so that it doesn't take anyone by surprise, and that people have plenty of time to prepare and be there if they'd like to.
Agreed. I am going to say it was not a set date as to once the task force is done, because we originally, I think when we talked about, they were still shooting for a May date. So now it's going to be near the end of June or relatively soon after that. Who knows with August, what happens with people and leaving town and everything, but making sure the community information comes in at the right time. So we don't have calendar dates yet, but yes, being very aware of making sure we have it.
Yeah, and I have in my notes that 2 weeks after that meeting, we wanted to do like kind of the forum for testimonials where people would come and,
Yeah.
speak. So we would give them, and we could give them that date at that meeting, so they would be aware of that. And then also at that time, launch the website so they could be putting their comments up on the website at that time as well.
So we'll have the Q&A with the task force and the public. And again, I know we're not narrowing in on dates necessarily, but we all agree that we want to give at least a couple of weeks notice, right, that the meeting's going to happen. So, okay. And then, as you say, 2 weeks after that will be the public forum and the launching of the website. And there'll be another public meeting, a third public meeting, so that folks can voice their opinions.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
And I think we talked about a postcard going out. That was how we were going to let them know about the first one and try to get that in, all mailboxes. So.
The other thing I would say is that the Q&A that will be published, I think that needs to be available to the public when we announce the meeting.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
so just
Yeah.
clarifying, so if we say, okay, we're gonna have the meeting two weeks from today, the announcement and the Q&A, all the information
I think we talked about
that would be discussed will be published and announced. At least, I'm just saying 2 weeks, maybe it's longer, I don't know, but I would think at least 2 weeks before the meeting happens. Okay. Great.
I think the other issue, the other big question is when is the decision going to be made? And I don't see an urgency to this decision. I think from a SMC standpoint, was it the end of 2024 they have to start construction if they're going to do it? I don't know what our timeline is, but I think somehow we either need to let the community know that we will talk until we can't talk anymore, or we're going to end it. But I think we might want to be at least thinking that the community might be saying, what's going on? We've had these meetings, what's happened, and so be aware of a timeline, whatever that might be.
Okay.
I think that's a good.
SMC say they preferred early 2023.
End of 23.
End of 23. Okay.
Yeah, to have a decision.
Decision,
And
and then,
start
yeah.
Got it. Okay.
go under contract.
Right. So that's, a year and a half from now. Right, so it's not like we have to rush to do everything, but we don't want to drag it out so long that people forget what the topic is. Right.
Well, we need to have a discussion on the referendum as well, because we've had many constituents email us asking for us to consider a referendum. So we'll need to timeline that discussion as well.
Okay. Are you speaking of a referendum, a public opinion referendum, or?
Just having the discussion. I know we're not prepared to have it tonight, but at some point, having the discussion on if a public referendum is appropriate for kind of the final decision on this topic.
Okay, that's a good point to put in all this, and that's why I'm saying I'm sure there will be a topic somewhere. I don't know where this needs to fit in. The way I'm hearing things, I know we're looking at a strict Q&A, but I'm sure that there's going to be much more involved than just a Q&A. This is not going to be a panel discussion.
I just want to make sure we acknowledge it in today's meeting because it's something that's important to many of our residents, and we need to make sure that we discuss it as a board.
It's also probably the most frequent word that I see in emails. You can categorize into, we need a referendum, we don't really need a referendum, but that word is used every single time. And so we might want to look at the emails and the questions that we're getting to say, what else do we need to address in this Q&A that may not be specific to the task force, but there's real questions out there that people either don't understand or we haven't been clear or we don't know, but they're valid questions.
We haven't been clear because we haven't said anything.
Exactly, we haven't.
Right.
And
Well, we're waiting for the information.
Yeah.
Because you can't do the next step until you have certain information.
that's very true, but
So,
the task force is not addressing referendum.
no,
And yet
no,
it's
no,
the
no,
number
that was not their remit.
Well,
I understand that, but that's the number one comment I see in emails, whomever is speaking. And so I think it's,
I'm not getting those that say that.
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that.
you haven't seen,
No, I have
I've
not
seen a
seen it.
handful, for sure.
well, I've seen several, but.
I have not.
Okay,
So I don't want to get
too far off
So,
the topic.
yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
we'll make sure that the referendum is in there. And one of the things that PCI also talked about is using the Q&A with the task force for clarifying. So if there's anything that the task force then needs to clarify, that would be the opportunity to do that, but making sure that the Q&As, the public forum information, the emails are all included so that they're all there available for us to consider as well. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Good. Okay. Moving on, we have policy manual update. Okay, so if everybody has a packet that has the highlights. All right, we have our policy manual as well as the notes that came from our meeting several months ago about changes to our policy manual and what has come back from our legal counsel as to what would be appropriate changes and what how to best direct us for some of the items that we talked about. So, and as everybody recalls with that last meeting that we had, we made good headway, but we didn't go all the way through.
Can I just comment that, if I'm correct, John, the policy packet that's attached has included new language in it. This is not, right? This isn't just the current acting policy, but it has proposed new language.
This one, while it was converted to a PDF, the one that when it was converted, we lost the notes from the attorney. So that was that was the other attachment that I sent out today. I think we also sent that out, I think over a month ago. At least the ones that were involved with the policy committee, if not all of the board. I don't remember, I'd have to go back and look. And that's a Word document that has all of the notes from the attorney and all of the updates as a result of these notes and the discussion.
Okay, so the policy manual that we have in front of us right now doesn't have the new information delineated. It's our old policy.
Right, I think once it,
Okay.
that's, once it got cleared to PDF, we didn't realize that that information, the suggested information did not get cleared.
Okay. So are we gonna be able to have that, or is that?
That's the one I sent.
That's the one you sent earlier.
Yeah, we
Okay.
sent it earlier today, and then
Okay.
we go to the same one we had sent out. I think I do it late April or something that,
That have the attorney's notes in it?
yeah.
Okay. All right, so I think what I'd like to do then is just go through some of the, so I think we're safe though with going with a summary policy meeting with the notes that we have there? Or do we need to go?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. All right. So,
And I apologize for the mix-up. I think, this would be good that you're not voting until next week. It's going to give everybody a little bit more time to look through changes and then if we have, if there's any other questions or suggested changes, we can do that before it's actually voted on.
This is an easier way to look at it anyway, because this is like a clip notes to the whole thing, so it's, for discussion purposes, this is better.
Definitely, except for the parts where it says, please see
Please see
comments and
policy.
policy.
Yeah, right, and that's what we're gonna have.
No, but I'm serious, right? Because
Yeah.
then you're saying that the changes are not in here.
No, they're in the one that I emailed, the Word doc that was emailed out today, and I think previously had been sent out. I don't remember if it was to the 4 board members that were involved with the policy discussion, or if it was all the board when that was received, but that was probably somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks ago, so.
okay, all right, so, in terms of, we'll go through this quickly and then we'll be able to go back again. COVID-19 changes to policy, obviously, as things change with COVID, that continues to be a moving. It's not something that we're permanently changing our policy. Jump in as I go through this. We talked about Robert's Rule of Order. We said that we may rely on Roberts if we don't have a policy that covers the subject matter at hand. All right. Okay, and when a motion is made and a vote is called for every item except for adjournment, we need to have that. If we're going to have that as our policy, we need to make that amendment. So that a motion is made and vote called for every item. For some reason, I remember this slightly different as to how we were doing that, such as the motion is made. We have discussion first, then motion is made, then vote is called. Is that everyone's recollection?
Right?
I'm sorry?
That's how we have it.
That's how we have it.
Tornado warning? A warning. No, watch is the light.
It's happening. Warning is just letting you.
No, warning is it's happening. Watch is like conditions are right. Warning is full on take cover.
Let's figure this out. So it's a tornado watch.
Watch is this one. Watch.
What-
is-
okay,
That's what it says here.
You just-
Warning bad, watch good.
Power of the word. Okay. All right. So, because if I recall from the meeting, our, that doesn't conform with Robert's rules, but that would be our policy as to have discussion, then a motion, then a vote.
And that the actual motion is published in the packet with the meeting agenda.
Okay.
Sometimes we've been asked to vote on things when there's no clear motion on the table. or
So it doesn't need to
understanding
be
of what we
not
would be
necessarily
voting.
on the agenda, but as long as it's in a memo, I have the suggested motion, at least in the memo in the package.
I would say, I mean, just for added clarity or whatever is appropriate, I'm not a policy expert, but the motion has to at least be in the packet. Right, so there have been times where there's been no motion, but just an idea to vote on something.
Right.
Like
But sometimes
right?
Done there where it says action and motion requested.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's the motion is always there, sometimes it'll be
It's
discussion.
not on the agenda, but the agenda will say approval, and if it's approval, that means there's a motion in the packet.
But there's none of this been.
No, there's
Actual-
times that there's not, and sometimes that's like when staff doesn't have a recommended
Right.
motion.
Right.
We leave it up to the board to discuss and then create a motion or make a motion.
Because you
on
can
that.
amend things and.
So then I would say if there's no expectation to vote, or if there's no motion listed, if there's not a specific idea as to what you want us to vote on, then I would say it's a discussion item.
But you have to have that
So-
flexibility of being able to vote for things. You can't be like black and white. It has to be a little gray, I think.
Can you say vote will be taken?
Yeah, we can.
Could you just say vote will be taken? And
Yeah,
then, and
I
not
mean,
say
we could
staff
put
doesn't have to
something-
make a suggestion, because discussion, and vote will be taken after you see what the agenda item is.
Well, to me, where this issue has come up twice now, it'll say something like contract negotiation approval. And there's no information about what this is, and you're like, I had good conversation. So I somehow to make it clear what the intent is, I think, would that be what we're getting at, Ann?
Right. There have been times where it's not clear as to what we're being asked to vote on. And so to at least start with a proposal as to what it is.
I mean,
that we
We
can
get the
prepare.
packets ahead of time, so if you have a question, you should send me on that. If
Yeah,
you're not
sometimes we
sure.
don't get the packets well enough in advance ahead of time, so. Or the full,
Friday-
or the full
Friday-
information
like
is
Friday
not,
before.
or the full information is not
Friday
provided.
before, you should get it, and
For
then if you
more
have questions,
information.
you can ask.
Well, we should, but so for example, the PCI, we got it at 2:00 in the afternoon for a meeting that evening. So that was just an example where it said approval and we had no information. So at that point, you say we're not going to approve it? We all agreed to approve it because we wanted to move it forward. But and I get why it was late and there were issues with getting hold of people. But that's my, I don't know if.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should have had the discussion on PCI before approving it, but that's water under the bridge now. But it would be nice going forward if we could have more specific, what is expected, on the agenda from the approval standpoint.
Our policy on page 18 is the agenda and board packet will be distributed to board members no later than Thursday preceding the regular meeting. The complete packet for all board members will be posted. Oh, you know what? This is actually the language that I think was recommended.
Yes,
The complete
it is.
packet for all board meetings will be posted online with certain items marked as draft. This is actually on page 18. This is our proposed.
That's what I'm saying, is this is what we proposed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we get to
Yes.
Wait, this yellow
Yeah,
part you're saying?
No,
put them in.
this incorporates the recommendations. Yeah.
Which one, which example are you looking at?
I was looking at the packet that on page 18, and that's our.
This doesn't have the 18 in here.
I was not on this committee, so.
Yeah, because the current policy on page 13 is simply, the agenda and board packet will be distributed to board members no later than Thursday preceding the regular meeting. So this is the additional information. The packet for all board meetings will be posted online with certain items to be marked as draft. All right, so we're saying to clarify the language then in our agenda. So it would either be for discussion or for, do you want to use the word vote or approval?
Which one are you looking at?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm being on the same one. A motion is now being made and the what was called was that the information on the agenda would be clear, and then the packet behind it would also give the suggested action and motion, if there's going to be a vote.
Right, that's,
Okay,
that's what you're saying, right?
That's what I'm saying.
that's what she's saying. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's the same. The pagination is different if you're looking at the thing that was sent earlier.
Yeah.
Like right now, it's page 13 versus page 18. That's the only difference. It is the exact same wording. So this is the correct.
So what in the printed packet, what page are?
18. 18 preparation of the agenda, 13 and the other one.
Numbers don't match up because the packet has got the agenda.
Oh, yeah, right, of
summary,
course.
and then adds pages, so
Of
it's-
course.
it doesn't line up. with-
Yeah, right. So that makes sense. But yeah, it's the same exact thing. I just did a compare.
Okay. All right.
That checker here, I love it.
Okay, this is the one we're going to have to come back to because we had a discussion at the time because we have two provisions within our current policy about, obviously, we have the statement of visitors, and then we also get information further in the policy manual about 120 minutes of time. So that's what we have to go back and look at the policy to see what our discussion was at that particular time. Here.
I think the discussion was that was lengthened at one point by the board, and that the desire was to shorten.
Yes.
Go back to the original time. What you're saying?
To shorten it to not. to be
3
less
minutes
than
per
120.
individual for a total of
minutes
30 minutes.
per item.
It was at 30 minutes, yeah.
Yeah.
We always have the discretion to add that.
You do, yeah, during the meeting.
Yeah, would we even need to vote, or could we just say, let's continue, this is healthy discussion?
This is, yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. Discussion to make public comments on only agenda items or above agenda and non-agenda items. Not sure that this was resolved. Okay, we had our information on here about Open Meetings Act. Citizens have the right to address their elected officials on any topic of interest to the speaker. You can speak on items that are on the agenda or are not on the agenda. So that would mean changing actually our language right at the beginning of our agenda that says it has to be on agenda items.
I believe the language in the policy package attached is already changed.
Okay.
On page 19 of the new packet.
Right.
So is that 14? Right.
Yeah, because he was saying there, because the attachment.
It says under unfinished or continue. Yeah, under unfinished or continuing business.
So are you guys recommending like doing it at the beginning then, just have everybody speak, or I'm confused on that?
Well, it's giving them the option to have either time. They can talk at the beginning, or if they have to leave, or at the end, or at the agenda item itself, right? Yeah.
Well, I
See
think,
when they can participate, because we want people to participate. Right.
and I think what it was in the beginning is things that aren't on the topic, on the agenda, and then there will be discussion, and that's what it is. In this package is already in here.
Yes.
To say we will change, as we will allow discussion.
So keep it the same, like the beginning is new, all things, and then you can comment.
Yeah, it's new, but it's in the packet. So, I mean, it's already written in here. That was the new policy. That would be a change in the policy.
We're going to have so many people hanging out here. Okay,
I think we all agree on that.
but I think that'll be it.
I'm a little confused still.
Okay, so the way.
Is it just, you can talk whenever you want?
No,
You're saying?
Exactly.
What I'm envisioning is that when we have a subject, say PCI, that we have under community engagement PCI, if we had a vote on that, we would talk that over. You could open it up to the public to be able to speak at that time, and then we call for a motion and we vote. And it may be the motion that has been recommended, or it may be modified at that point.
And where I think there was discussion, and I looked up the village policy to see how they do it. They do, at the beginning of the meeting, they have people who want to talk about something that's not on the agenda, they pick one.
Right.
So they can come up and give they do 5 minutes, but we're saying 3 minutes. And then at each agenda topic, after there's been discussion within the group, then they open it up for discussion on the people in the forum. Yeah. And there was original discussion about allowing them to get up and speak before we talked, before we had our discussion. So we just have to make sure we're.
So are we talking before and then we can listen to the comments? That's what I'm trying to.
We're currently saying after we have our discussion,
Okay.
correct? And we all agree with
I
that.
mean, sometimes we might answer people's questions.
Right.
Yes,
So I think it's
exactly.
fair to.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. That's what
But it's already in the language, is already in here,
Yeah.
even though, so this is.
Yeah, good.
But we haven't approved it.
Right, no, yeah, no, no.
So it's not
This is our-
approved. Even though it's in there,
It's not that it's here, this is the.
But it's not approved yet.
But again, this is state.
So it's there, but it's not approved yet. That's what I'm trying to.
This is,
It's just a draft.
Right.
These will be,
That's a
these will be statements from citizens. It's not a Q and A, it's not,
Right.
it's statements from citizens.
Okay, but we're gonna discuss and then if anybody wants to add to it.
Right.
I just wanted to know that because I think that's really important of how the procedure works.
Yeah, right. And everything except the consent agenda. Correct. Because consent agenda, we just go into the consent.
Yeah, you don't, yeah.
Yeah, there's no discussion or vote.
so at the beginning of the meeting, to put a fine point on it, at the beginning of the meeting, people can comment on agenda or non-agenda items. And then for each discussion point, under new business.
Under,
old
yes,
business,
yeah.
people can comment after our discussion and before the vote, if there is a vote.
Right. Okay. So maybe again, you're actually commenting, you're quoted after. Okay, this is one that says, see comments back in policy discussion, that all comments should be at the beginning of the meeting, not before each discussion, each agenda item, or should be put on the agenda. But what we're saying tonight is that this would be all new business items to be able to discuss. Comments from community, if there are any, then we make the motion, then we go into the vote.
Is it new agenda items only, or is it all business? I just want to make sure we're clear.
Okay, the way that we divide up our agenda is we usually have reports from staff, updates in that way, and then we go into the new business items, and we also have the consent agenda. Consent agenda would not be comment. Correct. And I would think during the staff reports, there should be public comment.
I think it's either new or continuing.
New or
right?
continuing.
And
Okay, so-
business.
There you go.
Yes.
So that bullet point there is new, food. We just discussed it.
Okay, so we had a question here, the motion should be read first, then discussion, lastly state the motion again with any changes, then vote.
Yeah.
Right, didn't we just talk about that?
I think you can amend the motions like we've done it before, where you do, I mean, that's just comments,
Yeah.
like
So,
sometimes.
so when you're stating the motion again, if there's something different than what was originally recommended, that's okay.
Correct.
You don't have to go with that original motion.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Okay,
That's a law, I mean, that's part of, you could do that.
of course. Okay. All right, written email communications from the public can be part of the written communications in the board packet. I think that's going to be a really necessary part to do. We do have the
So
capability.
one clarification, you
Yes.
change the motion, before it's seconded. Once it's seconded, then you can't change the motion.
Yeah.
You had to vote on that motion, and if you decided you wanted to change it, you could vote no, and then do another motion, you know, to correct it. Once there's a second, you can't change the motion.
We need to clarify our email policy. We do have the capability of having a dedicated email for people to write to the park district so that it is included in our board packet as we publish it. So again, that would be the written email, and if there was anything further in the policy that was changed.
I just have a comment about that. I love the idea of that email, but how are you going to, it almost sounds like if you don't understand that you have to use this email address, your communication will not be shared.
Well, that's
How do we
what,
get past that?
that's what we have here as to, we said it not read aloud. Should the email then be read aloud as part of the communications in the board packet? Or? Because that's what we had as our last summary meeting. As to email communications from the public could be part of written communications, the board packet and not read aloud. But then again, we have to go and see what is the change that was made.
I mean, what did the attorney say on this? This seems kind of like, I mean, let's say somebody starts saying really naughty things on it.
Oh, we have discretion.
Okay.
Yeah, if anyone makes a untoward comment or something that is
You know, like-
offensive or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
just thinking about, some people can get a little aggressive on these emails.
But what it is, like, in the past, we've gotten, if we get a letter, like correspondence, and we share that, with the board. So this is creating a policy to do that with emails. If we get emails and they want to share that with the board as part of correspondence for a packet, it doesn't necessarily have to be read out loud, but it can be shared with the board. So we set up a dedicated email for that. And as I was talking to Sue earlier, we could either put a note on our agendas that this is available for residents if they, wanted, if it's one way to send their question or comment to the board, to go to this dedicated email, and then you get an automated response from the email that would say, that your information will be shared with the board and be part of the correspondence, for the next board packet or whatever. They would have a choice to whether they want
Opt in or opt out?
to,
Okay, good.
do that, so they at least know what it's for. Yeah. A lot of the emails are, that we get are not, some are, they're just sending it to me, and they're not sending to, to the whole board, or they're not sending for necessarily a meeting. They're just, sending an email, so asking questions or making comments. So this would be a dedicated, way to do that, where this is where it's gonna go. So, it's gonna get to the board, it's gonna go in correspondence.
I think gonna need to do something where, because what I'm hearing is if you just send an email, it's not gonna go anywhere. It may go to whoever they send it to, but it's gonna stop there. So maybe like you get different emails than I get about whether referendum or whatever, but we're not sharing that communication amongst the trustees now. And I have a concern about that. But the other thing is could you at least do something like a reply on the email? So Joe Blow sends an email in and he's angry about something and it's an agenda topic. And we reply back saying this information will only be communicated with the people that you send it to. If you want the whole board, letting them know that there's another methodology to get that information to the next step.
Or is that an email, that it goes to all of us? Is that just an alias and it goes to all of us?
That one would go to all of you.
Yeah, okay.
So they have to know to do it. That's my problem, is how do you get them to know to do it? It's like a special secret door.
No, we talk about it in the agenda, we put it on the website, we make sure that the dedicated email address for people to use.
I just.
Yeah, I think we start to advertise that, in the, on our, weekly newsletter, we could put something out on social media.
I think above all of our names on the Board of Commissioners, that's how that's how the school does it, that's how everyone does it. They just say, if you'd like to email everybody, use this alias. And so I think if we put it on that page where they would have to go to get our emails anyway, they don't know our personal emails, presumably.
And I think a lot of people have a hard time sending to everybody because it's like copy paste everybody's email. And so, like you said, it's just.
I don't
goes to
disagree,
everybody.
I just want to make sure that
Just those people.
we don't expect you.
Yeah,
to jump through to know how to.
I didn't perceive that way. I think we can perceive this as making it easier for them to communicate with us. So instead of having to send individual emails
For sure.
to be like, here's the email, we want to communicate with all
And
the
then
commissioners
it's
at once.
all of us will get it.
And this will also get shared in our packet, if you would like to check this box.
Yes, and they can always email us directly if they want, but that is available
Yeah.
and that is the email.
They can do that, and if they ask me to share it, I share it, so it depends on, so we'll give them some different options.
Okay, so the question then is, we do not read these aloud, they're included as part of our packet.
that all emails that go to the common email box are shared in the packet?
Are shared in the packet.
I think you should have an option if they want to do that.
If they would check something to say
Yeah,
we would
because
like it
maybe
read
some people
aloud.
just want
I
to
think the
share,
attorney, I
not,
don't remember the attorney maybe didn't recommend reading them, but just acknowledge, put them in there.
yeah, but then letting those folks.
Oh, they're welcome to come and
But no, it's an
They can
opt out,
They-
yeah, okay.
They can opt out.
So it's published unless they opt out?
Right, I think so.
yeah.
Yeah, because if you're gonna write something, then maybe people will be a little bit, think about what they're gonna write and the word it right.
It is true, because sometimes we get emails.
They might
that
not know that's gonna
are-
be shared and published, they might be like, oh, wait a minute, this is, I'm just thinking about
Yeah, I've gotten some emails, so I'm pretty sure those people don't want to share.
I didn't ask you to share it, I think sometimes we have those moments and we don't do that 24-hour, just think about it and then send the email. We just send the email.
What does the lawyer say about that? Or do they have an opinion?
No, I think they
I just want to make
said,
sure we're not breaking.
no, I think it said, it was fine putting it in the packet. And I don't think they recommended reading it out loud, each one of them out loud, but including it in the packet, so.
Okay.
And it's, you all have it, but then it's also, we're putting this back online, so the public sees it as well.
Okay, we got into the next topic of the committee sizes. So we had kind of like a three-part here, the sizes of the committees, how many citizens belong on a committee, and the Michigan community, just, I think it was really other service on other boards in the community. I don't know if that's something that we necessarily have to address at this time, or if anyone had a concern on that one. No? Okay, it happens. Okay,
The attorney didn't think there was,
any problem?
no, a conflict that would, the room. So say with Sue being on the board, if we were approving our annual agreement with Loyola, then she might want to abstain from voting on it, but that otherwise it's out of count.
Okay.
And then serving the vote.
Okay, and there's no policy about since the conflicts, it's all self-governed as to whether you feel that you have the conflict and abstain. Okay.
I'm just about every board in town.
Oh, again, that's the wonderful part about being a Lake Fluffian is that you tend to volunteer for a lot of stuff and people know you from different walks of life, so that's always everybody wears a lot of hats. Yeah, a lot of hats on these heads. All right. Okay, so we're back to the same thing, defining the committees and number of members, call for special meetings. This was if someone does want to call a special meeting, which is, I believe, up to 2 board members. Is there anything further on that that they wanted to do? It's really not page 12.
Well, so add 5, it's page 12 in this, so
Okay.
add 5, yeah. 17, I think, right, doesn't that make sense?
Yeah.
Or 4 to 5.
Yeah.
But in the meeting.
It's right there.
Okay. Okay, so any further comment on that? All right, can vote by remote be accepted? It's only under the disaster declaration. And policy at 5.1.
So at this point, we're not disaster, or we're still technically disaster?
Disaster anymore.
Okay, so if someone were to be on Zoom, then they would not vote, they could just listen to the meeting.
Right, and what we do is, I believe what we've done in the past is that if there is a board member who's at a remote location, so long as quorum is here, we vote to be able to allow that commissioner to attend via remote.
But it's not voting. Nothing.
I think we could still vote.
Yeah. You can allow them to vote.
Yeah, you can. It's really isn't that clear. You can vote.
The only thing I would also recommend changing, so this is in 5.1, remote attendance policy, in the first paragraph there, it limits it not to exceed one meeting within 12 months.
Yeah.
And so that was added in like 2009, when it was not very common. So I don't believe the OMA limits the number of times. And I would suggest either the board consider the same.
Yeah.
And not limit it.
So for example, Scott's out of town 3 months in a year. Does that mean after the first one, he can't vote?
That's what
Under this, yeah, and that's
so-
what I would recommend,
Yeah, I agree.
getting rid of that. So that is,
What the comment, yeah.
I agree.
So just remove not to exceed 1 minute.
Right? One meeting day within any consecutive.
Yeah,
12
yeah.
months.
Remove that language. Okay.
That was like when remote meant there was a boomerang in the middle of the table. You couldn't see people live.
yeah, we literally, in Shell Park, we do it, and they would have an iPad where the trustee, would normally be, and he would be, it was like waiting time in, and that was okay for, remote attendance back then.
Or just a phone call, right? I'm sure.
You can even do it on, you could do it on phone call. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we just need to clear this up a little bit too, because, okay, you have to declare why you're not here or why you're remote, but under the voting procedures, we do obviously have to vote whether the remote person can participate remotely, but if it doesn't state clearly that the remote commissioner is able to vote, which I believe they are.
I believe they are, and I'll double check.
Okay, so yeah, let's just do that one.
Is that what the language participate means?
Yeah,
And what
yeah, it's not clear.
Yeah.
And if participate is taught,
Right.
vote is vote.
If you didn't participate, then you're just an attendee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
we just
so
change
you
it to
don't
participate
commit it.
and vote.
Anything else on remote and vote?
Do we really need the member must assert one of the following 3 reasons why he cannot physically attend the meeting? I mean, that just seems.
Yeah, the attorney did say, yeah, that's part of the OMA, I believe.
Okay.
Requirement. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, and the village uses that same,
okay.
those same 3 things.
Anything else on that? All right, then citizen committee members, again, we've got this stressed again about conflicts of interest. So according to the council, it may not be an issue, and we do give an address and, or, whether someone does want to abstain on a vote. Yeah. All right, we talked about the whole meeting is possibly being held before a regular meeting in order to consolidate our calendar. Okay, so attorney comment was that some people do it, but there's always a question as to why it matters. Any thoughts on that?
I kind of agree with that. I think it's kind of nice to have. I kind of was one that said, oh, we should put them together, but now I'm thinking it might be good to have some time to think about it and discuss, and then maybe go to more meetings and we just vote at that point, especially in that way already. And then board meetings are to just vote on all the boring things, kind of.
Yeah, you can't.
That's part of public hearing and the public survey.
No, I'm just saying because,
Yeah, so
You have to be here.
in Shell Park, we did it separately, like we do it here now, and then they went to the same night, where they did it, like the committee of the whole was an hour meeting at 6, and then the regular meeting started at 7. So that's been the last few years, they've been doing it that way, so
How's it working?
it's a long night, but
Yeah.
they've gotten used to it, so it's working out. I mean, there's not many complaints about it.
you don't have to remember what the conversation was 2 weeks earlier.
Right. Good Martian.
But and that might be a policy, I mean, you may want to keep it the same, if you're gonna change it, so we have our public schedule right now, calendar, and we we post that with the county. Yeah, you voted on that in December, and then we register that with the county. So if you're gonna get rid of those meetings, some of those meetings, I mean, you could do it now, but we just have to post every time that that meeting's canceled, as it is listed. Or you can wait until we're gonna vote on the next calendar schedule. So that's in December, but we talked about maybe start talking about it in October, November. If you're gonna change those, that either the night of the regular meeting or the.
I think
the
it's,
committee
I think
of
it's
the
really nice to have. I mean, at first I thought putting it together, but then I thought it is that sometimes you just need time to think about the item that's being discussed. And then maybe something comes up, so it gives us two opportunities to talk about different things. Because it seems like we always have stuff coming up. And so if you just make it once a month for things to get done, oh my gosh, that's gonna be like a laundry list of like forever.
I mean, it was under, like, the President Rosberg, I mean, we canceled 90% of the
Yes.
committee of the whole, just in half,
Right,
and
if
so
you don't
everything
have
went
it,
on
then
the
you just
regular meeting.
cancel it. Right.
Yeah, I kept thinking that was gonna happen. But it's been an unusual year. I would suggest though, that whenever it comes to changing, and there was another topic we had, that it's better to do it for the end of the year, like to plan for it, rather than change the policy mid-year and go, oh my God, now it's.
Yeah, I think, yeah, as long as we're judicious, when it's not crazy times with the committee of the wholes, having them separate probably is more, not more efficient, but better for, everything, but.
Discussion.
Yes, but like,
information.
don't, like, as long as we're not like making up stuff to have the committee of the
No,
whole, which we haven't had
right.
lately, but,
No,
sadly.
because I do remember when Chris was president, there was
Yes.
lots going on. It was like,
there were no.
like, especially in the summer, it'd be like, they're canceling, and I was like, oh, yes. And now it's like, another meeting.
The committee of the whole meeting has been previously canceled. Like, I would get that like every couple of weeks.
So I think I think that was the whole basis of having the committee of the whole, is so that we can have this discussion when we, and right now we need them. Because we have so much to talk about. Because there's a lot of things being.
So we'll keep this as a thought going into October, November, when we set our calendar for the year, but right now, yes. Committee of the whole is their schedule. Okay. All right, we talked about the agenda and putting that together. So it's the executive director with suggestions from board president and board members, preparing the agenda and the subject matter thereof. And any board member may request that a particular item of business be placed on the agenda before a board meeting. I know that a lot of agendas to put together this year. A lot of agendas. But again, so it would come from everybody on the board, and I guess the way again to follow Open Meetings Act to make sure that if there's an item that you do want to have included, to put it out to everybody. Do not reply all blind CC. Everybody to make sure that your item is out there. Okay, if there's a board member who would like to suggest an item for the agenda, to put that to John, and just, again, to follow the Open Meetings Act, this would go out with a blind CC to all the other committee members to make sure that we all know. If Nikki suggests something, she'll send it to John, blind CC everybody.
That makes sense.
Okay. Anything else on setting the agenda? Moving along to changing the date of meetings. Easiest way to change the date of meetings, just cancel it. Thank you.
That's what we do now.
That's why we get lawyers. Okay, to change all the meetings required an ordinance and a publication. Okay, and when and where should citizen comments be allowed during?
Wait, can I just make a comment on the changing the meeting? This came up because as a new board member, it's a challenge because there's village meetings at the same date and time.
Yeah.
I personally would like to see it on a different date. I certainly wouldn't want to do it mid-year, so it creates all this cancellation. So I would like to suggest that maybe we talk about it closer toward the end of the year to see, could we consider moving the date of the board meeting so that we're not in succinct time with the village board.
Okay, so I've got it down here that we'll put it, make it earlier. Let's start talking about it sometime in September, because by that time we have, school board, we have, village meetings, we have everything else as well. Okay, so we can see how our meetings sync up with everybody else,
Or in opposite weeks.
or opposite weeks or something, yeah.
Yeah, they showed that last week because of the financials.
Right.
You know, that would change in the past, but the day of the week isn't, magic. So the board wants to discuss that and consider a different date if it's complete. You're certainly able to do that.
Again, we did the same thing about when and where should citizen comments be allowed during the meeting. It's supposed to have to be at the beginning of the meeting before the board considers and acts on an item. Right, the right to comment is essentially meaningless after the board has voted on all of the matters on the agenda. So as we discussed, it would be for the new unfinished business, continuing business, that's where the commentary would be.
Just to go back, sorry, just to go back to the changing of dates of meetings, I really think this is an item that should be addressed at the tri-district meetings that you guys have.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
okay, that's
I
good,
mean-
thank you.
Everybody then is on the same page.
Yep, good point. And emails included the agenda packet. All right, is there anything else? Good, all right, so, John, you and I can refine this with Scott.
Sure.
You and I can refine this with
Sure.
Scott. We
Absolutely.
want to be able to get this then distilled into what we talked about tonight so that we can have this ready for including in the packet for the agenda with motions to be able to vote.
Do we want a policy where, we talked about this, John, where if it's a Word document, you have tracking changes, so you can see the changes?
And that's where,
I mean, hopefully there won't be any more discussion because we've had it, but I just want to make sure.
but that's,
Or
I
two
agree,
packets.
board policy should have the tracking changes into what the
I was
language.
like, tracking changes.
All right. Good, I think it'll be great, and, with a lot of these policies, we're ready to implement them as soon as, we do have, should the vote be such that they're going to be put into place. All right, our last, new business item was the committee meeting schedule. And again, we're not going to be voting on anything tonight, but this was going to be, I think a really good thing to have us put together for our standing committees of the Parks and Beach, for facilities and for finance administration and future planning. That each one of the standing committees have a dedicated date and time, rotating so that agendas can be put together easily. People can plan their lives as best as possible. I guess a question then too is to, because these are going to be live meetings today, Ron has the option of having the meeting by Zoom. Everybody can pop in, pop out. But I guess I'll kind of turn it over with John. Is there a better time for staff to be able to host these meetings?
Staff, ideally, if we could do it at 5, that's, we're still holding staff over for that, but it's also evening when many people are done working, but I understand that you have the dinner hour, different things to consider for kids or different dynamics, but we're talking, one meeting per month, one committee meeting. So I know that there's different feelings. I've heard from some commissioners who want to keep those at 6:30 and consistent with our regular meetings, and some would like to do them at 7 in the morning.
Or noon, we consider that, right?
Or
Or
noon,
noon.
but we, have to be in person.
Yeah.
And, so right now our last finance meeting, we did, a week and a half ago, and then we did it at 3 in the afternoon. And all the committee members were able to be here, but, I know I got like one comment from the public that somebody that wanted the recording of the meeting because they couldn't be here because they were working. Okay, according to Scott, the attorney, he said you know, really it's the committee meetings, you don't have to schedule it. The, you know, the public's convenience, you know, it can be up to the committee. It's kind of what we've done in the past, is let the committee chair decide what the best, you know, time is, and they, a lot of times will do kind of a, they might reach out to some of the committee members, see what works for them or whatever, but I do think it's a good idea to have a set rotating schedule of the meetings, you know, a day, and, you know, if you want to set a time, it's probably more consistent than, you know, what we've done in the past as far as leaving it up to each one.
Any thoughts on that? Could we just do a day and let the committee figure out their own time? Since the committees aren't that large, but do we have to commit to, okay, all of these will be the dates and they will be all at 5 o'clock?
The suggestion to do that was at the same kind of predictability as the village, so you know that like the sustainability committee is always on a particular night. At a particular time. I never get the correct.
ECZBA.
PCBB thing.
But I think the village committees are different than these committees because you have staff here.
That's true.
They don't have, I mean, they have Drew who's there, but that's the only staff. They don't have their working staff there. I mean, that's why they have that consistency. Because they don't have 3 workers that work all day, staying even later. So it's totally different. You can't compare the two together. Their village meetings are totally different. And so you can't compare them. So I agree with Nikki. I think there should be some flexibility, one for also the staff, so that, I mean, that's why I recommended doing the dates, because I think the staff gets like works really hard, and then we want them to do all these meetings and stay even later. And it's like, I think part of being a good partner is working with your people. And so I think having the dates is great, because then the staff knows what's coming up, and then having that flexibility of time to work with the staff too, and the people that are volunteering.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to video the committee meetings? Because it seems to me that that's the issue. Like when I first started on the board, I was told, well, if you really want to know what's going on in the park district, you go to the committee meetings. And I think that's where a lot of discussion does happen. And if it was videotaped, then people who couldn't come to the meeting could still follow that conversation and understand what happens when we have a vote on the board.
So I thought they were posting.
I think the minutes are, yes,
The minutes, but I think the discussion.
Which I did this.
Yeah.
Is there any problem?
No, I mean, that's up to the board. We would have to, you know, like for the finance meeting, we didn't have the Zoom options, you didn't have the equipment and the extra person running that, you know, it's just the staff here with the committee members.
What time in the
We
morning
did
does staff,
audio, we just did the audio recording. Okay.
what time in the morning does staff get here? Could we work out something like that, where it would be before people's workday, you know, if they wanted to attend, but like still within, not having you guys come too early?
You mean do the meeting early?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine too, that's up to the board. We've done a few finance meetings at 7 in the morning, you know, so it worked out better for their schedule.
I know when Chris was president, he did a lot.
Yeah, I did all my.
I mean, we're saying you were
right.
Yeah.
I did them all.
Yeah. It just depends. I think having flexibility.
Yeah.
But, you know, the Zoom, so if we were consistent with that, at least, I think to your point, we could record the meeting, whatever time it was, and then if that's posted, people can follow along. You don't have to be the meeting.
Yeah.
But this whole format has to be set up.
It does have to be set up. We just have to, and we have to, somebody here to.
And, you know, I've heard that Lake
Yeah.
County board meetings, that they do not record all their meetings. They do not. So it's just a lot of work for our staff.
But it doesn't always have to be audio. I mean, it can be audio too.
It is over audio.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be visual.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing right now. We're doing an audio recording.
But is that posted for people to be able to
That
listen
has
to?
not been posted. It hasn't been a policy in the past to post that, but again, that's up to the board. You know, a lot of things have changed, so.
And
I'm
then,
just saying, if we worry about the community, this gives the community the ability to hear the meeting, to hear the conversation, to understand why decisions are made, which is, you know, a lot of times better than minutes, but then it also gives the committee flexibility to have the meeting when it suits their committee.
And you started out with the task force, you know, so they're, you know, that's the only one that's assigned to the board that is recorded and it is posted. But you can decide that with the rest of the committee meetings, if you want to post the audio recording of the meetings, you can post those.
And that would not entail obviously all of this.
Right, no,
Just have
it's
something.
a little handle, you know, device that we use for that.
Okay, all right. So going back into our policies, there's the policy change could be posting audio and or video of the standing as well as the COWs and the regular board meetings, special meetings. All right, and then if I'm hearing everybody, it's let's pick a date, but then leave it up to the committee as to when to set the time for their particular date.
No,
yes.
pick the time.
No, pick the date.
Pick the date, and then we're rotating each one of the committees
Within a month.
Oh, yeah, yes. But
Okay.
I meant,
But then,
the
yes.
committee starts to pick the date, so I'm like,
No,
wait,
no,
we're getting
no.
off.
So are you saying that all of the committees will be on the same day?
No, no,
Oh, okay.
that each one will be
Yeah,
rotating.
So
Okay.
rotate, so it's the third week of the month, because it's between the committee of the whole and the regular meeting. So third week of the month, whether you pick a Wednesday or Thursday, we figured it's a little later in the week, shouldn't conflict with village, and then we just rotate. So month one is Parks and Beach, month two facility, month three finance, start over with Parks and Beach.
And then of course, if like something big is happening, we need to have more.
Absolutely.
More.
Yeah.
But then at least like, for the staffing purpose, I think then they know, and it kind of like becomes like,
I agree.
just like, here's the update of what's going on, and it kind of becomes easy.
Okay. So, again, the recommendation, or excuse me, the suggestion that was put here in our packet was, you know, rotate starting off with Parks and Beach in July, facilities in then August, Finance Committee in September. So we rotate them one after another, and you do 4, it sounds like a year then.
I'll move to approve a set schedule for committee meetings.
I can update that memo for the regular meeting, and then you can make the motion. So I can update the memo, just say, you know, that the chair pick the time for the
Yes.
meeting, but these are the dates
Yes.
that the board would like to adopt for these.
And then put the, yes, put the,
Okay.
that would be great. Okay. Anything further on scheduling? I appreciate this, even though we didn't vote on anything, I think we accomplished a great deal tonight, in moving this ahead, and we'll be very well prepared for our next meeting to be able to enact what we discussed. Someone? Well, that's a, no, we can do it all, we're all here, okay.
Hi.
Thank you. Hearing no opposition, we are calling the meeting at 8 o'clock tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. These guys.
I'm only second way. Oh, yes.
Yeah. I'm, just trying to help the people. So,
Probably have to meet in the summer, we're gonna have to sit out here and watch all. We're stuck inside. I love it, yeah.
we should be fine.
Nothing's wrong. No, this winter, like, there were gonna be storms, like, they're gonna be-